everybody, it's Sarah, and for today's video I want to share with you what I read in the month of July. I have already mentioned in a few videos that July for me was a little bit slumpy. However, when I just now tallied up my stats and looked at my stats, I noticed that page-wise this was one of my best months so far this year. And I think that might be because I reread the first two books in the Stormlight Archive series, and both of them are over 1,000 pages, but I still am kind of proud of myself, not gonna lie. But anyway, while we're at it, let me share my stats for July with you. I read a total of 10 books in July, 2 of which were rereads and 8 were new to me. Also, 2 were YA and 8 were adult books, or books written for adults. I read 6 high fantasy, 2 literary fiction, 1 sci-fi, and 1 historical fiction novel. And that made up a total of around 5,000 pages. I think it was just under. I think it was like 4,990 or something like that. Stars-wise, I had the whole spectrum. I had 1 5-star book, 2 4 stars, 2 3.5 stars, 2 3 stars, and 1 2-star book, and that came out to an average of about 3.56 stars per books, but that is not counting my rereads. I personally have to say that I feel it's unfair if I count my rereads for my stars, because obviously I'm only gonna reread books that I loved previously, so of course they're gonna get a high star rating again. Now that we have the stats done, I have 4 books left that I still need to talk about, because as always I have already done a mid-month wrap-up, so if you want to know my thoughts on the other 6 books that I read in July, you will have to check out that wrap-up, and I will leave it of course linked up there and down below. And now let's get into these books, and I'm going to talk about them star rating wise, as always. The first book I want to talk about is Senlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. This is book 1 in the Books of Babel series. And I have to say I have a kind of funny / embarrassing story why I even picked up this book. And that is that I joined a buddy read group chat on Twitter for reading adult high fantasy. And the way we choose books is we have a list of all the books that we're interested in reading, and then we let a random number generator choose which book we want to go for. Now the random number generator does what it does best, and it chose a random number. And the book that was chosen was The Killing Moon by N.K. Jemisin. However, this one was written right above it, and while I did look at the right number, for some reason I managed to look at the wrong book. And so I thought we are reading Senlin Ascends, and then I bought it, and then I read it, and I kind of regret it because I didn't hate the book, but there's certainly a lot of problems that I have with it. So I ended up giving Senlin Ascends 2.5 stars because I had some very egregious problems with it, which I'll get to after a quick summary. But this book follows Thomas Senlin, who is the headmaster of the school in his little village. And he is on his honeymoon with his young wife to the Tower of Babel, which of course, similar to the Bible, in this world also is kind of this marvel of humankind. This also, by the way, has a lot of steampunk elements, and I did enjoy that part. But anyway, they're on their honeymoon, they arrive at the tower, and his wife disappears. And the rest of the book is just Thomas Senlin trying to find his wife again. And that is the main problem I had with this book. Because, first of all, let's talk about the positives. I did think that Thomas Senlin as a headmaster was a quite unusual main character for a high fantasy story, or for a fantasy story. Because he is this very kind of timid person, this very proper person, this person who trusts everyone. However, the Tower of Babel isn't what he expects, and so as he moves up through the levels of the tower in search of his wife, he has to become more wily, he has to start distrusting people, and so on. The story also isn't a badly written one in any sense of the word. I thought it was engaging enough, I kept reading, it was quite a fast-paced read, and so it's not necessarily badly written. However, the thing I don't like is that I think now, in the modern day and age, we have long since moved past the story of the man in search for his wife, of the man in search for his woman, of tales of damsels in distress. And now don't get me wrong, we do get glimpses of Senlin's wife Maria throughout the book and kind of tales of what she herself does to try to get back to Senlin. However, I don't care about that. The main character is still Senlin. So we're told that Maria isn't a damsel in distress, but the basic story still is Senlin going out of his way to try and find her and to try and rescue her. And something just doesn't sit right with me about that. I just really don't think that we need those stories anymore. And basically the only thing that helped that Maria wasn't like a literal damsel in distress was that I gave it 2.5 stars and not just 2 stars. And the thing that also kind of annoys me is that I think you could have made the book so much more interesting if, for example, you had had a dual perspective. If you had perspectives from Maria as well, what she does to try to get back to Senlin, as well as what Senlin does to try to find her again. Or just make the whole book from Maria's perspective, which honestly would have been way better. But alas, we cannot have everything, so 2.5 stars. If this book is your jam, I guess you won't hate it because it's not horribly written. However, there's no way I would ever recommend this to anyone. The next book is The Dying of the Light by George R.R. Martin, which was my poll or my choice from my TBR chart polls for the month of July. The Dying of the Light is a sci-fi novel, and I think it's George R.R. Martin's first published novel, so it was written in the 70s. And you do notice that he didn't have as much experience writing as he does now. However, first a little summary. You follow Dirk Tolarian, I think his name is, and he one day gets a message from his ex-girlfriend asking for help. Now he arrives at the planet where his ex-girlfriend is, and he's kind of confused because she doesn't seem to need his help at all. However, he then finds out that she, against her knowledge, married someone from a different culture, and in that culture, women are basically just like the property of men. And so Dirk tries to help her to get away from her husband, even though on the surface she says she doesn't want to get away from him. And do you notice that this month I really didn't have any luck when it comes to like the type of story I picked up? Because I got another story of a man who thinks he needs to help a damsel in distress, who actually isn't a damsel in distress, but I'll get to that later. But anyway, overall I gave this 3 stars officially, but actually it's like 2.75 stars. Because there were some interesting things in this story. But first the negatives. I really didn't like Dirk. I thought he was a fucking annoying main character. I actually really hated him. And also, as I said, it's really obvious that this is George R.R. Martin's first written work. One of the things he's most known for in A Game of Thrones, at least in my opinion, is his excellent character work, where even the characters that you don't like and that you hate, you can still kind of see their motivations and you can still kind of root for them in a way. However, that really wasn't the case here. Dirk was very much a flat character who went through, I won't say no development, because he did go through some development, but he was really annoying. The main character that I found really interesting and that I liked was the husband of Dirk's ex-girlfriend. I thought he was an amazing character. And then Dirk's ex-girlfriend is kind of in the in-between. She, again, isn't necessarily your damsel in distress, and she multiple times calls out Dirk for like him seeing something in her that she isn't. And she multiple times says to him that, hey, the reason I broke up with you was because you wanted to push me into this picture you have of me, but that is not me. And with you, I can never be my own person. So I did really like that. However, she doesn't really have the complexity that you usually have with George R.R. Martin's female characters. So it's very much a prototype of his female characters. The main reason why I did end up enjoying this book is that Dirk, as I said, goes into this culture that is completely different from his own and that he sees as very brutal and primitive. And then I do think that there's multiple conversations between Dirk and people from that culture who are like, hey, don't judge us. You don't know our culture. You just see what you see, so don't judge us. You cannot judge us by your standards and your morals. And I did really enjoy that. However, then on the other side, you did also have a character from that culture who saw other cultures and now wants to change his own culture because it's too brutal. And then at the same time, you also have members from that culture commit genocide and just like brutal massacres. And it's okay because it's their culture, and that just kind of made the message of just like not judging other cultures by your own standards a bit muddy, in my opinion, if that makes sense, what I'm meaning to say. Also, the thing that I did enjoy very much was the ending. Obviously, I cannot say a lot about it. However, it was a very open ending, and if you don't like that in a standalone, then this probably will not be for you. But honestly, I don't know if I would recommend it recordless. I think it would be interesting if you're a George R.R. Martin fan and you want to know where he started with his writing. But just as a novel, I think it's pretty dated, to be honest. Then the next book I want to talk about is Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo, which is book 2 in the Grisha trilogy. And this was my series TBR chart pick for July. And can I just say, I don't know if you can see, but I absolutely love these covers. And when I bought book 1 at the end of last year, I was thinking of just buying all 3 at once. And I regret not doing it because now they have the stupid Netflix sticker and it's just ugly as fuck. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Put it at least on the back or something. Anyway, little rant. The Grisha trilogy is set in this world where there's some people who have special magical powers, and those are called the Grisha. Our main character, Alina Starkov, at the beginning of the first novel finds out that she is such a Grisha and that she in fact has quite a special superpower. She is a sun summoner, and as such she might be the answer to saving her country. Now, I won't talk too much about this because obviously it is book 2. However, what I can say overall about the series is that it's just one of those like early YA series that's kind of fun. It's a little bit dated and I don't find myself particularly invested. I cannot say if the reason I don't find myself particularly invested anymore is because I'm just not as invested in YA in general anymore, or that it really is a little bit dated, which it is, to be honest. However, what I can say is that multiple times throughout the novel, I wanted to throw this book against the wall because Mel is the worst character I have ever read about and the worst love interest I have ever read about. And he is so fucking toxic. I cannot believe that there's anyone out there on Twitter who's like, yeah, he's a great character. We love men who are intimidated by their girlfriend's strength. Absolutely love that. Anyway, I hate him, and honestly, I don't really like anyone in the novel. I mean, Nikolai is okay, but aside from that, no. And I also don't find the Darkling as interesting as everyone always says he is. But yeah, I'm probably gonna read book 3 this month and then I'm done with it. And then the last book I want to talk about is Girl, Serpent, Thorn by Melissa Barshadoost. And this was a kind of short notice read because I only just complained about it, I think in my last video or the one before that, how my bookstore never has like BIPOC books and LGBT books and so on, diverse books basically. And then last week I went to the bookstore and on all the tables there were at least 5 books by BIPOC authors, and I know it doesn't sound much, but like in total I think over the whole section of the English books in my bookstore there was like 1 display table full of BIPOC books, but like not all in one place. And it's still mostly YA and literary fiction, so like not that much in other genres. But it's so nice to see a bigger selection, and I was so happy that I went out and bought a bunch of books, and one of those was Girl, Serpent, Thorn, because honestly I was 100% sure that if I wanted to read this book I would have to order it on Amazon or via my bookstore, and I didn't have to do that, and it makes me so happy. And so yeah, that's why I have this right now. I then also read it basically in one sitting, but this is a quite short book, and this is a sapphic YA high fantasy. Now we follow our main character whose touch is poisonous, so she has never been touched by another human being basically. Now she sees an opportunity to maybe lift her curse, however there are some not so nice consequences. I did enjoy the book overall, and honestly I would have given it 4 stars. I found our main character really interesting because she does make some choices that are very, very flawed. And I did love that. I love when you have YA main characters, especially when they're women, who are allowed to make choices that are wrong. That just, there's no if and buts. They're just wrong. And I did really enjoy that part of it. So I would have given it 4 stars for the general story. However, one of the main reasons I also bought it was because I had heard that it's sapphic. And I have to say that I was really, really disappointed in the romance, which is why I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. I found the romance to be really underdeveloped and kind of out of nowhere. And there also wasn't really that much chemistry between the 2 characters, and it felt more like there was just the romance in there just because there's a romance in every YA novel, but it could have easily done without the romance and just have the romance be a friendship. So that was something that I was kind of iffy about. However, I would still really recommend this book overall because I do really enjoy the story, and I do enjoy that I could get this at my bookstore. Like, how amazing is that? Anyway, that was it for this video. If you enjoyed it, maybe think about giving me a thumbs up and also maybe subscribing. Tell me in the comments down below if you have read any of the novels that I have read, or if you're interested in them and what your thoughts are on them. And all the links to my social media are as always in the description box down below, so go and check those out, and I hope I'll see you soon. Bye!